Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to some and peace out to the rest of you. Hit the share button because the message is more important than the messenger. I wish I had better news, but I got to tell you guys this right quick. Gentlemen, Hanna Grace Cobb and Telvin Osborne, aka Tebow Rankins as a nickname, have taught us something. But there was something else that played behind this. And I was not aware of this at first, how bad it got. But after I recorded and uploaded my last one, which was also about Telvin Osborne, aka Tebow Rankins, and how he was still better than not only Cynthia G, but hell, better than Kendra G for that matter. I talked about how sisters would love to sit up and point to lesbianism and bestiality as better alternatives to normal run-of-the-mill black men. And that they would go out of their way to insult individual black men to their faces in front of other people all the time in order to drive home this point. Tebow Rankins had these posts where he simply made a blanket statement without singling any sisters out, but said he'd resort to bestiality before a sister again. I stated that both are wrong. For one, you don't promote, even you don't want to sit up and say that something natural is worse than bestiality. You don't want to do something like that. If someone came to me and said to me, listen, black, and then they pointed a gun at me and they told me, you now must decide, are you going to promote that black men get with sisters, or are you going to promote that black men get with other species? But you got to choose. I would probably say, well, then give me a minute to pray, because you're going to have to pull the trigger. I'm not choosing. But I would still say, I will tell you this. The bestiality is still worse. You weren't made for that. And the beasts were not made for this. This is not normal. And so therefore, as a matter of fact, to be honest with you, I didn't know. When I was younger, I didn't know that species could get down with each other like that. I didn't know they could. I heard some people that would make jokes about somebody liking canines and somebody liking felines, and jokes about stuff like this. I thought that, I'm talking about as a kid, I'd hear people say nasty things about somebody else and derisively and diminutize them, but I didn't know that these types of things could actually occur. I really thought that species were immune to finding each other attractive enough. I really thought so. It's truly what I thought. But apparently it's not the case. Apparently, they're not immune, but they're still not wired to prefer this. They don't seek that out. When tigers are calling to each other, mating calls to each other, they're not calling even to lions for that matter. That's the funny thing. Even in India, where they have lived near each other, they don't call out to each other. And they can, in fact, produce viable offspring. Yet their voices are different enough to where they don't call out to each other. A lion would not know that the tiger's mating call is even a mating call. Leopards and jaguars that are very similar and can crossbreed with viable offspring themselves don't know that each other's mating calls are mating calls. And they sound pretty similar. They look similar and sound similar. They're very closely related. But their mating calls don't even sound like that. Alligators and crocodiles can't even hybridize. And when they do live together, they still have to carve out different territories next to each other because they can't really just live together. As a matter of fact, crocodile babies become aggressive towards gator babies when they're young. Why am I talking about this? Most of us wish I could even find out that something like this exists. That's the African in us. That's the human being in us. Most human beings can't perceive of something like that. You think, no. They just won't naturally go that route. But then you also have you got something else at play here. What Telvin Osborne said was bad. Don't even appear to promote something that unnatural. Avoid that. But I stand by what I said before, that sisters on average are still worse. Casually, they have been in our culture saying something that is far worse in a worse way. Well, they said something that is equally bad, I should say, but they've said it in a worse way. Because what they generally do is they try to make sure that others are around as witnesses and that they tell you to your face that they prefer other women or other species to you, because they want every single one of us, you and me, to think that we're just the last choice a woman would make. And it's okay that a woman doesn't want you. It is not okay that a woman is willing to sit up there and lie to you about every other woman not wanting you, and then tell other women, if you do want him, I'll never talk to you again. They can even say that, really, but the fact is that it's wrong for women that do like you to let other women determine whether or not they're going to choose you. That's not adult. These women are literally sitting up and saying, you have to pick them independently of what your friends think. And as a matter of fact, they'll only give you a chance or come checking for you if they know your friends would say, nah, bro, you don't need to do that. Because they want to make sure you're an independent thinker. But they're not independent thinkers. And they also want to make sure, it's funny because they don't only want you to be an independent thinker, because they demand more adulthood out of you than they are willing to be themselves, but they demand that you be an independent thinker for another reason. You know what that reason is? Oh man, you're going to be pissed when you find out. But they demand that you be an independent thinker because they want you isolated while they get advice from each other all the time. They shall be organized, you shall be atomized. Now, how this comes into play here with Telvin Osborne and Hanna Grace Cobb. This is what happens. Follow me. Hanna Grace Cobb and Telvin taught us a lesson. A different lesson altogether. That lesson is that as a black man, you don't leave alone the Western sister to go get with another Western woman. A Westernisha is a Westernisha. Maybe I should have called them Westernettes to make the point clearer. But Western women in general have the same orientation as far as we are concerned. There is a minor difference. All Western women, or all cultural groups within the West, have a phenomenon in which the women treat the men of their own group worse. They just generally dislike their own. The Latino women raised in the West look at Latino men and are like, man, look, you're too controlling. I don't like this. And then the white woman looks at her man and says, F the patriarchy, and you're going to sit in that corner and watch while I bang this black guy over here, and you better still pay these bills on time. Well, damn, that's really emasculating. Now, why does she have this need to emasculate her man? Well, it's real simple. She still doesn't like her man because she can't be satisfied. Sisters also, and the Wyatt Westernettes or Westernishas have this thing where they feed off of each other. Now, they're not always right, but what they're doing is they're picking and choosing the absolute worst behaviors they think the other one has, and they demand to get away with it. So what Becky thinks Sapphire gets away with doing to us bruhs, she demands to get away with doing to her man. And what Sapphire thinks that Becky does to her man and gets away with, she demands to be able to get away with doing to us. So when they're right, they copy each other, but when they're wrong, they still try to mistakenly copy each other. So what I'm saying is, when you look at these things and you really analyze it, you need to leave the Westernishas alone, period. The Latina, the Asian, the Wyatt, and the sister, when they are born and raised in the West, you leave them alone. You don't approach them. You don't try to get with them. Stop trying to get them and stop trying to keep them. Maybe if they come checking for you out, I understand why you give them a chance, but even that's problematic. And you're finding this out. But more so than that, there's more. It doesn't stop there. Let's keep going with this. When you have women raised traditionally in traditional environments and they move to the West and they live in the West long enough to become Westernized, they become the same thing. Now they're Westernishas. They just been Westernisha for less time. And what do they say? Well, I have to go through the same 3 or 4 phase that these other women went through and got away with. They went through and got away with it. I got to do the same thing, and I got to get away with it. And this system will not only let me get away with it, but it will turn around and penalize the man and not me. Oh, yes, girl. And then you have an Ali Wong type situation. My ex-husband's my best friend. He's being nice because y'all got to co-parent. He may not even hate you, but he's being nice because you got to co-parent. He would have no reason to speak to you again if y'all didn't have to co-parent. And I really don't think that he should have to share custody with you. You sat up here and said you're going around collecting bodies, collecting dingalings. That man is not doing that with these women. But you're doing that with these dudes, and you're going to sit up here and brag on comedy stages about that. You flying around, you getting flued out and flying yourself out many times, or flying dudes out to come dig you out. Ain't no commitments. Ali Wong represents the danger of the traditional Asian woman that moves to the West. And even if she doesn't become a Westernisha, her daughter will. Ali Wong represents that. Many traditional Arab women want to become sexually liberated when they move to the West. Man, shuck that fit. Done work for the men. What do they mean sexually liberated? It doesn't mean they get to choose who they want to marry. They could do that even back home, for the most part. Now, honestly, that happens here. A woman gets to choose. If the dad does manage to force her, she could still take the dad to court. A lot of them just choose not to take the dad to court. They just find a reason to divorce the guy later on. Usually they try to do that. They don't hate their dads. And they know that dads don't hate them, but they're like, that was wrong. But nonetheless, you get what I'm saying. It's if you leave the traditional lands and go to the West and become westernized, you're done for. Brothers, do not leave these sisters of the West and then go to the Wyatts of the West, or the Latinas of the West, or the Asians of the West, or the Arabs of the West. The Western or westernized women of these cultural groups also must be left alone for your safety. That's self-defense. And for the benefit of your kids, if you have any, if you're going to have any. You don't want these ladies raising your kids. Those women will do whatever they can to ruin you. That's who they are. Ruin you and your kids. They'll turn around and have your sons being no good. And then to make matters worse, they'll turn around and they'll have your daughters also being no good. Your sons, they will try to raise to be sexless simps that women can't respect. And your daughters, they will raise to be oversexed harlots that no men can respect and to whom no men can commit. And the funny thing is, one of the results they will like. They will actually like the results that they get from raising the sons to be sexless simps. Okay, they'll say, okay, this is great. I raised my son so that nobody else's daughter has to actually suffer because of him. But what they really mean is, I successfully raised my son so that no woman has to be an adult and responsible and accountable to get him. That's really what they're saying. And they mean that. They mean that from the bottom of their hearts. But then there's another lesson in all of this too. So we got this part out the way. You know, Hanna Grace Cobb, Grace LBRY, what they got in common? Getting the black men that chose them into trouble. And these black men had already learned that sisters wasn't going to be there for them. And the way that sisters demand we be there for them. They both learned this. Ran off to Becky, and she taught them the same mother cuss word lesson. One lived to tell it, and the other one can't tell us what he learned, so it's up to me to explain that. Well, Hanna Grace Cobb taught that lesson. So while they want us to turn around and say that Telvin Osborne deserved what he got because of what he said, what I'm saying is no, he paid more than what he needed to pay for what he said. You think he was really going to sit up and lay down with somebody of another species? No, I don't think so. He was pretty much just reacting to what Sister said. I'm going to tell you what it is, though, and this is going to trip a lot of y'all out. See, I thought the sisters would be just talking that mess. I said last time, well, you know, we know they'll get down with these with other women. But you know what? If they ain't started with these other species yet, if they ain't started yet, they're going to at some point because it's like they're talking themselves into it. That's what I said the last time. I was like, you're getting a little too close. Well, guess what? Shout out to Abdullah bin Bobby Atayyib. Assalamu alaikum, brother. Ramadan Mubarak. And just to tick off the racist, Black Ramadan. But not that there's really a Black Ramadan, y'all. Don't get it twisted. But if you ever happen to be around a racist, tell them that. Or act like there is around them. And we know we got to troll the racist and the misandrous too. But anyway, shout out to him. He sent a link in the comment section of my last Telvin Osborne video. And apparently this came out 12 hours before I'm recording this now. What? I can't believe in my mother cuss word self. did only Logical watch my video and get the idea? Or did he hear it? Or did somebody discuss it that we both know and it gave me the idea? Only Logical came out with a video 12 hours before my recording this right here, probably about 15 to 16 before I'm uploading it, in which 8 years ago and some months, about 8.5 years ago, roughly, uh, a couple named Rhonda Romine, or sister, Divester, and her zaddy, Scott Brister, in the Phoenix area, Maricopa County, where the sheriff is Joe Arpaio, the infamous guy. And apparently there, quite a while back, this cracked me up to no end. Um, I don't fully understand this, but they arranged to meet with somebody that was into this sort of thing. They didn't know they were meeting with law enforcement. And they asked him, "Are you a cop?" Now, remember this: undercover law enforcement is not required to identify themselves as undercover law enforcement. They're not required to tell you, by the way, I'm actually a cop and I'm investigating crimes. And if you actually try to go through with this, we got you. We're going to pick you up. They don't have to tell you that that's what it is. So for an arrangement to commit some unnatural congress with other species, if you will. Yeah. For the arrangement, for the intention, they got picked up because they walked right into the sting operation. Now, what I'm trying to understand about the sting operation is, why was it set up? Well, apparently there were enough people trying to get involved and busy in these kinds of things to be set up. For them to do an investigation, try to find out who these mother cuss words doing this shasty knit. There you go. There it was right there. They walked right into it. Now, this was a long time ago. I don't know what their sentences were, but Only Logical even said there's a possibility that she is now out of, trouble. She's out of captivity for this. She might not be in captivity anymore. She may have found somebody. She was 26 at that time. But the point is, she was willing to do something like this. And the text messages, go ahead and check the video. The link to it is in my comments section of the last one. I pinned it. Check it out. Some of the text messages that were sent to Scott Brister about Rhonda Romine were racist. And he seemed cool with it. He continued with the conversation, in which she was called his slave. And he was like, he was going to bring her on to just go ahead anyway. And then under the comments underneath that video they contained 2 comments about how apparently some of these zaddies are in Kenya able to get ladies to participate in this. Are you effing kidding me? In Kenya? That's the continent where people have generally been some of the most conservative, men and women alike. Most Black Africans did not understand certain practices that other people were into. Like other species? Ninja, are you serious? They didn't, throughout the continent, whenever you had sheep that were raised, did you know that it took Europeans to tell humanity that apparently the sheep's birth canal, if you will, was very similarly structured to the human being's birth canal?
Africans didn't know this. I ain't saying Africans were always innocent of everything, but this apparently was not something that they knew about. However, and the funny thing is that we're talking about Kenya, which is one of the places on that list that has fallen to feminism and misandry. So it turns out that Telvin Osborne's comments have wound up opening the door for us to learn another lesson. Yes, you actually have divestors that are going as far as doing whatever Zaddy says, and we know Zaddy's sick. Zaddy is just, I don't have to tell you that. Irritated genie of Southeast who doesn't believe that brothers should be with anybody but sisters, even women that don't have no problems with us like Southeast Asian women. Even he has said, this is some sick stuff coming out of Europe. We didn't know about a lot of these things. He was right about that from what I've been able to gather. Because remember, I hung out with people that you now call tethers. I've been hanging out with them for a long time. And there were things they did not know existed. I met a Cameroonian man that studied in Egypt. He didn't know that such a thing existed until he lived in Egypt, which is also on the continent. But you know, they don't call themselves African. I later on told an Ethiopian when I began hanging out with them, I said, listen, are these kinds of things even known about in much of the continent? And the guy got sick. He said, please don't mention that. No, man, we can't even imagine that. I was like, yeah, okay, I won't mention it because I ain't trying to make you sick. I wondered if this was even known, and you just confirmed for me that no, this is not known about. It's an outrage. Just like it feels to me when someone mentions it, it actually is to people. So no, I'm not alone in this. You and I share the same reaction, except mine's not in the stomach. It's in the head. But nonetheless, yeah, I get it. It's outrageous. Just like I thought it might be. I don't know why Europeans, even who don't do this stuff, don't seem to show the same sense of outrage. And most of them are innocent of stuff like this. Most human beings are innocent of that kind of thing, but there are folks who just don't have that outrage in their culture. I want you to understand, black man, you don't get to simply run to Becky. That's a Western problem that we're facing with the sistering. The other women in the West got the same issues, and they're trading with each other. They're in a race to get away with the most stuff and pay the least penalties, if any at all. And not only that, but while we're sitting up here trying to warn, like my dumb behind, trying to warn sisters, hey, look, you're talking yourself into some nasty stuff. Turns out I'm too late. We just don't know how many. Now, like I said, most human beings, man, woman, black, white, most human beings are innocent of that kind of outrage, but I don't know how long that's going to last. Apparently, the fall has already begun. And now we're just waiting on that sudden stop at the end. Cut it out. Stumble, but don't fall. Well, they done already started falling. So they taught us that number one, what they've been saying, they've already talked themselves into. Not just their own gender, but other species. They done already talked themselves into that in small numbers that we know of. Small. And that when you leave these sistren be, you leave them behind, you're going to have to start going after, not even going after, but you're going to have to make yourself available to women in other places, traditional areas that don't look down on you as a black man. And here's the thing, even in the Philippines, even there, you're going to have to understand that you must demand good treatment. Give it, but demand it back. Keep that in mind too. Shout out to Red Black, who's in the Philippines. He's talking about that. He's covered that. He's like, yeah, look, they got dudes out here that'll make them single moms and they'll let them. So don't let them turn around and demand that you treat them better. Demand they treat you equal or better. And that's a good thing because right now you can still demand it and get it. And then you can turn around and give it back and you can have the situation you were looking for, which is right, which is just, which is fair. That's what I wanted you knuckleheads to understand. Still salvageable. But you got to know how to not ruin it. Whereas it's already ruined when you're dealing with the West and certain parts of our home continent. Already gone. Neck rolling, finger snapping, all kinds of attitude, and they ain't apologizing for it. It's like the only thing they feel guilty about is not having more attitude. And I want this for you. Believe me when I tell you, I do not want this for you. So hopefully what I've said has been a benefit. I hope that what I've said helps out. And as always, thank you for listening. Black heart, black mind, blackout, black heterosexual, non-select male power because they don't like it in black patriarchy until extinction of Judgment Day. Thank you for flying with us again here on Jet Black Airways, where the phrase jet black is also a verb. Y'all know what it is. Keep jetting black with us till the wings and the wheels fall off. Gender justice forever.